Give me a fat beat to beat my buddy's ass to. Batman is playing Galaga. Thought we wouldn't notice, but we did.
I am a god, you dull creature, and I will not be bullied by that.
Have care how you speak. Loki is beyond reason, but he is of Asgard, and he is my brother.
He killed 80 people in 2 days.
He's adopted.
Before we get started, does anyone want to get out?
And welcome to another episode of the Containment Unit. I am Tony.
I'm Lindsay.
I'm Groot.
And we are doing another spoiler review, so spoiler siren right off the bat.
Spoiler alert. Spoiler alert. Spoiler alert. I think this is a majority of what we do.
Yeah, I think so. But we got to be very blatant on this one. I mean, in the title, it's going to say spoiler review. On the YouTube image, it's going to say spoiler review.
Right.
Because we are talking about Avengers Infinity War. And this is one of those movies where definitely giving spoilers without warning is a dick move.
Oh, yeah. Oh, my gosh. Because there's so much that happens in this movie to different characters that to say even one thing, it's like, why would you tell me that?
Yeah.
That just ruins it.
Now, I will say, though, that like 90 to 95% of the spoilers, if things go as we are anticipating and as a lot of audiences are anticipating, aren't going to mean shit by this time next year.
Yeah.
So this is the culmination of 10 years of Marvel.
Right.
And there is no denying whatsoever when it comes to superhero films, Marvel is king.
Right.
There's so many people love to go on about, Marvel movies versus DC movies.
Yeah.
And, Marvel's kicking DC's ass. Yeah, definitely. They are kicking ass in movies. TV shows.
Right.
Animated features. Even in the comics. That's DC's game.
Marvel's trying to get some stuff up there with like The Gifted and whatnot, but it's not holding a candle to things like The Flash and Supergirl Legends.
Or this last season of Gotham.
Yeah, or Gotham.
This season of Gotham has been amazing. But anyway, so...
on to the movie.
Giving total credit that the past 10 years of Marvel films has been the greatest of superhero films.
Yeah.
There have been DC movies that I think are better than a lot of Marvel films. Don't get me wrong. I'm just saying, overall, they've had the game plan.
Yes.
Overall, they have a better product. But even they falter from time to time. Just looking at the stuff that is under the Marvel-only banner. Not talking about Fox or Sony. Like things like Ant-Man. I
liked Ant-Man.
Well, that's the thing. It was good. Wasn't great. The Guardians of the Galaxy movies. I don't think they're great. I think they're good. I don't think they've done a bad movie under the Marvel banner.
Right.
I think there have just been some movies. It fluctuates from good to astonishing.
Well, like when you get to the Iron Man trilogy, the second one is often touted as like the inferior of the three.
And one of the worst Marvel films in a lot of people's opinions, which, again, I think it's good, not great. I think the only ones that have been consistently great are the Captain America movies.
Yeah.
There's a reason why he is the linchpin of the Avengers, and everybody tries to say it's Iron Man. No. Iron Man the movie may have kickstarted everything,
right?
But when you look at the impact of the movies, you look at the impact of the characters, Captain America all the way.
Yeah.
So this is the culmination. Everything's been coming together ever since the first Avengers. We have known that it is coming towards Thanos.
Right.
He is, the Mad Titan who wants nothing more than to collect all 6 Infinity Stones into his Infinity Gauntlet so he can snap his fingers and wipe out half of the universe.
Is it half or is it more than half? I mean...
In this movie, they say they've said several times he is aiming to eliminate half of the population.
Okay.
Because of overpopulation.
Right.
He even says the universe is finite. Resources are finite. But the population continues to grow.
Yeah.
And grow and grow. And we even see in this movie Titan, where he's from.
Right.
And he uses, at this point, he has the reality stone, and he uses it to show everybody what Titan used to be, and it was beautiful and prosperous.
Right.
But they didn't check the population. They let things get out of control, and now it looks like a used set from a Mad Max movie. It's just a wasteland.
And then you get a flashback to when he got Gamora, when he took Gamora from her family. And
that was messed up.
Yeah.
But beautiful at the same time.
I thought they did a really good job of finding a child who looked like she could be a young, I don't know her names, the actress.
I am blanking on...
Is it Zoe?
Yes, I think.
Where's my phone?
I don't know. But yeah, they got a girl that could play a young Gamora, Uhura, whatever. She's Uhura. But
I know she's Uhura.
I loved that scene because that was one of several scenes, and we'll get more into this when we talk just about Thanos.
But you see, he's good with kids. You see, he's charming.
There is a positivity to the character. He's a villain. He is the ultimate villain.
Right.
But he's not just like, again, to compare to DC, Darkseid, where Darkseid is just about destruction.
Yeah.
There's nothing positive there. Whereas you have a few moments during this where you're like, if he wasn't trying to kill half the universe, he would be an all right guy.
But comparing to how you see Titan and everything, the moment when you see Gamora and she is, you see Gamora's background, and she is getting on his case about taking her from her mother and stuff like that, and killing so many of her people.
Yeah, because he basically did to her planet what he's trying to do
to the universe.
He goes from planet to planet, conquers, and then kills half the population.
Yeah. And
just randomly. And just splits them up and goes, you're dead, boom, and then leaves the planet.
Yeah. And he tells her, that the people who are living there now, he's like, because when she was growing up, she was on the streets, people were starving, hungry. Yeah. And he says now, he's like, everybody there, they're happy. They've got food in their bellies because there's plenty of resources to go around.
Yeah, the children have known no strife. They've known no hunger. All because of what he has done. And we talked about this earlier, that he is one of those villains you kind of understand and in some strange ways appreciate what he's trying to accomplish.
He's got a messed up way.
Yeah, the way that he's getting there is totally screwed up and not good. And
there's a lot of story arcs that actually are following this same ideology right now, like Dan Brown's Inferno. And that's about this guy. He sets off a virus, and at first they think the virus is going to kill the population, but what it does, it actually causes infertility in like a third of the population, so that all these people all of a sudden now can't have kids.
And then there was that show with the kids you were telling me about, where like a virus was engineered to kill the old.
It's a Netflix show called Between.
Yeah.
And it was supposed to target the weak and the old, but it ended up targeting people 22 and older. So anyone 21 and younger stays alive. And so you have all of these children and adolescents who are now having to learn how to take care of themselves, fend for themselves. I mean, it's the way that it's done. I mean, then you have a pharmaceutical company that is like taking advantage of it, of this discovery. Ooh, let's give people this virus, and then we're the only people with the cure, so we make all this money. And then, sorry, just off topic, but how are they going to make all this money if all the survivors are 21 and under?
Yeah. Okay, so anyway, back to the movie. This is not something we haven't seen in movies and television shows before.
Right.
I mean, hell, this is right out of a Bond movie. 2 different Bond movies.
Really?
They did something like this, a little bit more villainous, where in
A little bit more villainous than killing half the population of the universe. Okay.
Because Thanos is, he even says random.
Right.
Rich and poor alike.
Yeah.
Fair. Whereas in the Bond films, it's usually where the villain, and it's in the Roger Moore films, where the villain gets all the strong and the pretty people together and keeps them safe, and then they're gonna be either safe underwater or in space while they blow up the rest of the world. And then repopulate from this perfect eugenic society.
And like the first Kingsman movie.
Yeah.
Only the people who could afford Valentine's protection
were safe. Yeah.
So basically, only the rich.
Yeah.
Were going to get to survive this
Damn
apocalypse.
that Nick Fury. So it's this whole movie is nothing new.
Yeah.
The way they go about it, even though it's not unique, it's great. I wonder if this is even being picked up on the mics. Hold on.
Oh my gosh, I think it is.
Yeah, our dog
Just
is
a little
snoring in the background. So there's nothing really, unique about it. But the execution of this, for the most part, very, very good.
Yeah.
I would say that the issues with it are kind of issues that people anticipated with a big cast.
Mm-hmm.
They're trying to say this is the most ambitious crossover event of all time, because they're taking damn near every major Marvel character and giving them something to do in this movie. Some are in there for one scene, some are on and off the whole movie.
Yeah.
There are some that really get the short end of the stick.
Like Wong?
Like Wong. Wong, I think, was a highlight of Doctor Strange. And Doctor Strange is one of my top favorite Marvel films.
Well, Benedict Cumberbatch as Doctor Strange, he just embodies the role so perfectly.
And he's got somebody like Wong to play off of, which they do. There's this whole scene
when they first introduce
well, in Infinity Wars.
Well,
where they're in the Sanctum in New York, and Doctor Strange is going out for sandwiches, and it's this whole thing of
you don't have
any
money?
But anyway,
we have no personal possessions. I think I have $200, and I think it's rupees.
How much is that? $1.50. But there's characters like even major characters kind of in this story don't really get much.
Yeah.
And I think some of it's, at least I had no problem with it because I'm not a fan of the characters, like Drax on the Guardians of the Galaxy side. He really just had nothing to do, which was sad because his family was killed by Thanos. When we first see him, he's wanting to kill Thanos.
And when he first finds out, like when we first see Thor in this, not when we first see Thor in this, but when we first see Thor interacting with the Guardians, and he mentions that Thanos did this, like, Drax is automatically like, oh, we're gonna kill him, and he's like, he's back to his vengeance mode of wanting to stop Thanos,
which I would have liked to see. I mean, they do a little bit with it, with him not listening to Peter, and Peter having to, like, no, stop, we need to have this plan,
right?
But then that's it. And then he, basically Drax gets killed twice. He dives at Thanos, and Thanos, as I called it afterwards, just ginsus him. He just chops him up like sushi.
Using the Reality Stone.
And then when he leaves, he kind of forms back together, and I was mildly disappointed.
Well, let's say he doesn't die, because he does a similar thing to Mantis. But you see, Mantis is still blinking.
Yeah.
So they're still alive. They're just, the reality around
graphically
them has been
incapacitated.
Yeah, it's like in Inside Out, whenever they go into this they're using this shortcut in Inside Out, and it starts, taking them down to simplistic parts, like they get into shapes and everything, and they start falling apart.
Yeah.
Abstract thought.
Okay.
That's what it's called.
Yes, no, we don't have young children. But there's other characters that just are there for a minute and then really don't have a payoff. Even if they're a small character, I feel like they missed an opportunity for a payoff with, like, Pepper.
Yeah.
Pepper's in the opening just briefly, and then she calls Tony when he's going
when he gets
into
on the
space.
ship. Yeah.
And then that's the last we hear of it.
Mm-hmm.
And bigger characters really have a time to shine.
Mm-hmm.
But I do feel like their biggest thing that they screwed up with is they made this feel like, and this is something we talked about before, they made this feel like the transition from Aliens to Alien 3.
Yeah, yeah.
Where at the end of Aliens, it's almost a happy resolution. Yeah, people have died.
Right.
But
they're safe now. They've gotten away from danger.
Exactly.
They're going towards a new future.
Yes.
Yeah.
And then what we find out with the next film is almost immediately that goes to shit.
Yeah.
People are dead.
Newt's dead.
Newt's dead.
The
Hicks
kid
is dead. Everyone except for Ripley is
ends
dead.
up killed. Yeah.
And it's just like, wait a second. We love these characters. Why are they just now gone?
Right.
And this movie opens.
Now,
basically,
when you say this movie, verify if you're
sorry.
talking about Alien 3 or...
Yeah, so Infinity War opens basically at the tail end of Thor Ragnarok.
Right.
Where the surviving citizens of Asgard, Thor, Loki, Valkyrie, Hulk, Heimdall, they're all in the ship getting away. And then it opens, and the children of Thanos are walking over the dead bodies of Asgardians, walking over Heimdall, who's screwed all to hell. He's gotten his ass whipped. And you're just like, wait a second. You just gave us this lighthearted, fun, too funny at times movie in Thor Ragnarok, where the whole point was to save Asgard.
Right.
They do it, and the very next film...
Because Asgard is not a place, it's a people.
It's a people. The very next film, none of that mattered.
They're all slaughtered.
They're all slaughtered.
By Thanos' children.
Where's Valkyrie?
Yeah,
we have no idea where
don't
Valkyrie
see her
is.
At all.
And this whole scene is just like... It felt like it came out of nowhere.
Yeah.
Felt like it totally made Thor Ragnarok meaningless.
Well, it didn't completely come out of nowhere because one of the end credit scene from Ragnarok is the ship showing up, and Thanos' ship showing up.
Yeah, which you're like, what is it? And then now we know what that ship was. So yeah, it's not that it's out of nowhere, but it's abrupt.
Right.
But the big thing is that it totally makes everything that they accomplished in Ragnarok meaningless.
Yeah.
And then that's what I'm afraid of with this film, is that there's major character deaths, there's major moments that I could not take seriously.
Yeah.
Because I knew that in the very next film, none of this is going to mean anything. They're all going to just... magically be back. The situation's going to be fixed, because let's get it out of the way now. We've said spoiler repeatedly. Spoiler alert. The body count by the end of this movie would make Joss Whedon piss his pants.
Yeah, people are saying that George R.R. Martin must have written it.
Yes, because you've got Loki dead and legit dead. Finally.
Oh my gosh, his death...
His death is brutal.
This was not like in Thor Dark World, where it's that, nice speech, and then he turns blue and just, I did it for you and everything. Or I didn't do it for father, or whatever he says. And then he just, this is... like, you hear his throat get crunched, and then he just gets tossed aside like a rag doll.
Blood coming out of his eyes.
And his eyes are doing that open, dead stare thing.
Bloodshot because of asphyxiation.
Thanos just strangled him.
Yeah.
It's just... But the thing that I liked about Loki's death is that I was afraid... that it was going to be... because, in the previews, you see him holding up the Tesseract to Thanos. Yeah. And I was afraid that it was going to be the whole thing of... he turned on Loki because he turned
on Thor.
Oh, yeah, I'm sorry. That he turned on Thor because, Thanos is going to win. I'm going to go with the winner, and then gets betrayed or something like that. Or gets killed in a battle or whatever. Yeah. But no, he's giving Thanos the Tesseract to try and save Thor.
Yeah, because... Thanos actually says, give me the Tesseract,
or I'm going to kill him.
And I'll let him live.
Yeah. and he actually starts killing Thor, and the look on Loki's face, his eyes get
because he
teary-eyed.
originally says, he says he lives or he dies.
And
do you have a preference? And he goes, I have a preference. Let him die.
Yeah.
But anybody that knows anything about this knows that he's just bullshitting him.
Right.
Because he quickly, all right, stop.
Right. Yeah. And then Thor is trying to tell him, Loki, he's like, he's like, we don't have the Tesseract. And then Loki holds up the Tesseract, and Thor's like, Loki, you really are the worst.
Yeah, you are the worst, brother.
and so then he hands over the Tesseract to Thanos, and then it was beautiful. They have Thor like tied down. They like the one that's all magical.
Yeah, they use like telekinesis to hold him down with metal.
Yeah, with parts of the ship. And Loki at that point starts like pledging his allegiance, quotation marks, to Thanos, but he starts saying, I, Loki of Asgard, Prince of Asgard, last,
rightful
ruler of
Odenheim.
No. Because he was
Laufey was his dad.
Laufey was his biological father, but of wherever the frost giants come from.
Yeah.
And I can't think of the name of it.
Me neither. No,
I will have had to have watched the first Thor in order to have it fresh in my mind.
It's gonna be one of those that when I hear it, it's just like
oh yeah, that's it. But then he glances to the side right at Thor, and I think he kind of winks a little bit, and he calls himself Odin's son.
Yeah.
And that's like a nod to Thor. I'm not turning on you. I'm trying to get close to him.
Yeah.
And then he has his hand cupped, and he magics up a blade, and then he goes to
stab
Thanos in the throat, and Thanos just reaches out and grabs him, and Loki has last words, but I was just sitting there in the theater like, Loki?
Yeah, it is.
And
this is within the first 5 minutes.
Yeah.
Now, at this point, too, and I'm going to get back to my train of thought here, because we're
bouncing around
we're
so bad.
explaining Loki's death more detailed than I anticipated. Because I was going to run down the body count.
That's because I love Tom Hiddleston.
The moment I said Loki, you started explaining. But keep in mind, at this point, we've already seen Hulk get his ass beat.
Yeah.
And
by Thanos.
Which was, just to throw in, was a beautiful scene when Loki just looks up at him and says, we have a Hulk.
And then Hulk just
soldiers in and gets his ass beat, and Heimdall uses dark magic to enact the Bifrost to get Hulk off the ship.
Yeah.
So
sends him to Earth.
Yeah, sends him to Earth. So we've got Loki dead. Then they pick up a sword, run Heimdall through. He's dead.
Heimdall dies before Loki.
Okay, sorry.
Because it's right after he sends Thor off the ship that they're like, oh, Heimdall, whatever they say to him. They don't call him by his name. And they say, that was a mistake. And they like run him through with like a trident or something.
And so 2 beloved characters, legit dead. Not, and like you pointed out, it's not like the past. No. Loki's there, bloodied, dead, gone.
Well, even Thanos says, I don't think he's coming back from that one.
Yeah.
It's just...
And by the end of the movie, Gamora's dead.
Mm-hmm.
Pretty much all the Guardians of the Galaxy are dead, except for Nebula and Rocket.
Mm-hmm. Even Groot is dead. Which was heartbreaking. And we'll get to that in a little bit. Then we also lose Bucky. Mm-hmm.
Sam, Falcon, is dead. Peter Parker,
Spider-Man,
the most heartbreaking death.
Oh my gosh, that's when I really started to cry. The 2 that I cried on were Loki and Peter Parker.
Doctor Strange is dead.
Mm-hmm.
I'm trying to think who else Black Panther. Who else on Wakanda was dead?
Yes, because the head of his guard, I can't remember her name. Yeah. She was like, he was coming over to help her up, and as he reaches for her,
he just disintegrates.
And the look on her face.
Loses it. She doesn't know what to do at that point.
We didn't see a Shuri.
Yeah, we never saw Shuri after she started fighting off people.
Right.
And then we also lose Vision.
Yeah.
Vision's dead.
Well, we also lose Scarlet Witch. She is kneeling over Vision's
That's
body.
right. I keep forgetting. Scarlet Witch is gone.
Yeah.
And then in a post-credit scene, we also lose Agent Hill and Nick Fury.
Yeah.
So by the end of this is the biggest body count we have ever seen in a superhero film. Mm-hmm. And I laughed at some of these.
I was sitting there like hitting your leg.
I got
like,
yelled
stop
at
laughing
when the movie was over for laughing. Because, like I said, I couldn't take any of this seriously. Because we've got another Spider-Man movie coming up.
Yeah.
We've got a standalone Black Widow movie coming up. We have all of these movies coming up.
Captain Marvel coming up.
Well, set in this universe that has to do with characters that are either killed off in this or going to be vital to the situation.
Yeah.
That in their standalone movies, it makes no sense to have them all pre-Infinity War.
Right.
Because then you have all these movies starring all these characters that you're going to have to watch and know that they're going to be dead soon.
Like we have Ant-Man and Wasp coming up.
And they explain why Ant-Man and Clint,
Hawkeye,
are not in this because they took deals with the government to get them off the land because it was too hard on their families.
Yeah.
And so really, it was, like I said, it was just hard to kind of... It was the exact same reason why Superman's death and Batman vs. Superman didn't faze me. Because it was very clear this isn't going to stick.
Right.
The next movie, we're getting him back.
Right.
And this is an example I used, another Benedict Cumberbatch movie when we were talking. Star Trek Into Darkness.
Right.
When they tried to recreate the Wrath of Khan death.
Right.
Which at the time was an amazing character death because there was no plan to bring him back. Mm-hmm. That there was enough to believe this was it for Spock.
For the original. Yeah.
But in Into Darkness or Re-Wrath of Khan, they flipped the switch and now it's Kirk that dies. And again, I couldn't take it seriously because... One, they're not going to kill off Kirk.
Right.
And two, they slapped you with the resolution 10 minutes before you even find out he's in danger.
Hey, what are you doing with that Tribble?
Oh, God. It's just like, important scene. Record scratch. What are you doing with that dead Tribble? Freaking J.J. Abrams. Okay, anyway. So...
Back to the story at hand.
All of these characters dying just... It didn't mean anything. Mm-hmm. And like you mentioned, we've got Captain Marvel coming up, which is a major film for the Marvel universe. Mm-hmm. And it's a major thing in this because the post-credit scene after Thanos has gotten all the stones, snaps his fingers, people start disintegrating like Voldemort at the end of Deathly Hallows Part 2. We get a post-credit scene of Agent Hill and Nick Fury talking, and you pointed out that she says, all right, we haven't heard from Stark. All right, get Clint on the line. Mm-hmm. They're going to call in Hawkeye.
Right.
And then things start going to hell in New York. They start disintegrating. Nick Fury pulls out a communicator, types in something, and it's like a beeper with add-ons.
Yeah. It's like what the 12th Doctor did to the sonic screwdriver.
Yeah, there's all these
sonic screwdriver.
All these attachments.
Yeah.
And then Nick Fury
Nerd alert.
Nerd alert. Nick Fury starts disintegrating, drops the communicator, and it says, sending, sent. And then it comes up with the Captain Marvel logo.
Right.
And nobody in the theater knew what the hell was going on.
You hear a lot of, huh?
There was a whole bunch of teenage girls who I swear were probably crying when Loki died. That were just like, huh? What's that? And, speaking of which, let's backtrack for a second. End credit sequence. Like we've already said, Marvel films for 10 years. Who the hell still gets up as soon as the credits roll in a Marvel film? Half the theater got up and left. And I'm just sitting there looking at him going, really? 10 years and you still haven't learned. Okay, whatever.
I've been watching a few shows on Sci-Fi lately, and so I've been seeing on the Sci-Fi channel, and so I've been seeing their most recent promotional.
Oh yeah, the ad
stuff
campaign, like it's a nerd thing or
it's a fan thing. And there's that one where you see all the people getting up from the theater, and you see that one couple who's sitting there going, like, they're looking at everybody getting up, and they're just like, ooh, grabbing their popcorn. It's like, there's more to it. And then it says it's a fan thing.
So this fan thing shows us the resolution, because obviously this isn't just a normal pager.
Right.
There's add-ons. This signal is not going somewhere normal. And what we know of the Captain Marvel film is that it's going to take place in the 80s.
Right.
So Captain Marvel is getting this message back in the 80s.
Before any of this stuff has happened.
Before any of this. So they're going to have time travel. Plus, I didn't know this at the time. We found out today when we double-checked the Disney schedule of movies. Mm-hmm. Avengers 4 is coming out in a year.
Yeah.
Which apparently they've already filmed most of.
Yeah.
Last I heard, it was supposed to be Infinity Wars parts 1 and 2 back to back, and then they scrapped it and said they were just going to do Avengers 4 later on.
Right.
Nope, they're back-to-back releases. So we're going to get all these characters back.
Mm-hmm.
You know, Spider-Man had a heartbreaking death. A teenage boy just, you know,
clinging to this father figure that he's found. Yeah.
He's holding on to Tony Stark because he doesn't... I was expecting him to go full Doctor and just go, I don't want to go. And it was like, seriously, like I had tears welling up because it was...
Just the way he was... You know, he was holding it and he was crying and he was like, I don't want to go. I don't want to go.
He was scared shitless.
He was so terrified. And then, you know, he just collapses and Stark collapses with him, just trying to hold on to him and everything. And then he just starts to, you know, turn to ash. And that was when Stark lost it.
Yeah. And so, yeah, I felt emotion there. But we've got Spider-Man Homecoming 2 coming out soon. So we're going to get him back because I don't believe that that we're going to have all these movies that are set before Infinity War.
Yeah. Well, when is Homecoming 2 supposed to come out?
Like 2020 maybe.
Oh, really?
Yeah. It's going to be a little bit. So really just I understood what they were trying to get at, but they didn't. I really don't think they adequately fooled the audience.
I think that. So I don't think it's about fooling. I think so many of the people are in the emotion of the moment.
Very much. I will buy that.
Because, you know, with how many people were getting online, like before we got the chance to see it, I saw so many people getting online going, I just saw Infinity War. I need to talk about this.
Yeah.
Like, people were freaking out. Like it was like they lost a loved one. They needed to talk about this.
Now, originally, I'm suffering from Marvel fatigue. So I had very little intention to see this opening weekend. And so after the spoilers hit online, I went, screw it. And I read the spoilers.
Right.
And that's when I went, okay, I got to see this. And I purposely told you nothing.
Well, you were like, do you want to know? And I'm like, no,
I was teasing you with it, but I was not wanting to tell you because I wanted to hear your reaction. And that's where a lot of my laughter was coming from. Because I was greatly enjoying hearing people freak out and hearing you, no. And at the
was I making that much noise?
Yes, you were. And then at the end of the movie ends with Thanos has won.
Yeah.
You know, you think that
he goes up to in Black Panther, the other tribe that's separated and lives up in the mountains where it's all cold or whatever. He's up there.
Is that where he
is?
is?
I think so, because it looked like,
because there was no snow. He was just looking out. I mean, he was basically in a hut. He gets up, looks out, sits down, sees the sun. It's serene. It's quiet.
And he smiles. And then it just credits.
Yeah. And I look over at you, and your jaw's in your lap, and you just go, huh? What? No! And I lost it. I just started laughing, and that's when you hit me. And just, stop laughing! But, again, it was just, for in the moment, a lot of these worked. But at the same time,
Loki.
Yeah, Loki's death was very well done. Gamora's death
Yes.
was great because Gamora was killed at the hands of Thanos because she knew all this time where the Soul Stone was. She was the only person that knew. And they go to the planet where...
Well, real quick, she never intended of giving Thanos the location of the Soul Stone until she saw that he had gotten a hold of Nebula and was torturing Nebula.
Yeah. And Nebula didn't know, but she knew that Gamora knew.
Yeah.
Gamora was the only one that knew the location because she got the map and
burned it. Yeah.
So they get to this planet, which I can't remember the name of right off, but it is guarded by... When I read this in the spoiler, this is one of the things that made me go, I want to see this. Mm-hmm. It's guarded by the Red Skull.
Yeah.
And oh my God, it was so great to see the Red Skull back. And then he started talking and we went,
That's not Hugo Weaving.
Hugo Weaving, son of a bitch.
For some reason, been busy with something.
Yeah, so they didn't get Hugo Weaving back. They got somebody that sounded a lot like him.
I didn't think so. That's why
he had the inflection. He had the accent enough to where I don't think like average audience members really caught it, but we're film geeks who are just that's not a voice that says Mr. Anderson. So we could tell it wasn't Hugo Weaving, but
or Gandalf.
So it's he's there as kind of like a guide almost,
right?
And he basically tells him, if you want the Soul Stone, you have to sacrifice something you love. And Gamora's like, haha, sucks to be you.
Because you don't love anything.
Thanos turns around with tears in his eyes.
And she's like, oh, what? You're crying because you didn't get your way? She's thinking that he's crying because he's lost. Because he's lost. He can't get the Soul Stone.
And that's when Red Skull chimes in and says, the tears aren't for him.
Yeah.
And that's where the audience starts getting chimed in of, oh, wait. He truly loves.
The audience getting chimed in. I think that was kind of obvious.
It was obvious for the diehard fans. I think there's two audiences for this movie.
Okay.
There's diehard geek fans, and then there's people that just like to go see the blockbuster films.
Yeah.
Mm-hmm. And I think the people that just like to go see blockbuster films, Thanos is not just a typical bad guy. Yeah. He has many levels, and this was a level.
He's like an onion.
Yes, you're peeling back a lot of things, and there's tears.
He's like Shrek,
except purple.
Yes, true.
He's like if Shrek and Grimace had a baby. But and I want to lead into talking about Thanos here in just a minute, but just to see him so broken up over what he knows he has to do to get the Soul Stone. Mm-hmm. And he just picks Gamora up and...
He drags her,
but then picks her up and drops her off this cliff.
And the look on her face.
Yeah.
She's screaming, she's crying as she just like falls down to the bottom.
So we're getting this image of Thanos of tears running down his face. We've already seen how he was with her as a young child when he invades her planet, and he's
affectionate.
Charming. He's very affectionate. He gives her
this double-bladed
switchblade, and also when she turns around to look at people, he's like, no, and like he's trying to shield her from the violence.
Right, and the switchblade that he gives her too is beautiful. It's like silver and covered in rubies. It's absolutely, he's like giving her this beautiful gift.
It's balanced on and Thanos is a big sumbitch.
Yeah.
He is so big that it's balanced. Like he looks Hulk in the eye.
Yeah.
And he's balancing this blade on his finger and it looks like a toy. Mm-hmm. But then when you see the actual blade in full grown Gamora's hand, this thing is huge.
Yeah.
It's a big, like almost machete thing. So with Thanos being this caring villain, I think it was something that we don't normally see.
Yeah.
And not just in Marvel films, but in movies in general. I thought Josh Brolin did a fantastic job, except for the fact that it wasn't it could have been anybody else.
I mean, I knew that it was Josh Brolin doing it because I had heard that he was cast in it. I knew it was Josh Brolin.
He's played Thanos before,
but if it wasn't for the fact that I knew it was Josh Brolin, I would have thought they had gotten Ron Perlman.
Because he looks like Ron Perlman.
The mouth
sounds
movement.
like Ron. Basically,
He
imagine
had that accent that Ron
it was
Perlman has.
purple Ron Perlman with a nutsack on his chin. That's what it is. And like the whole time I'm thinking, this is great.
If Hellboy and Grimace had a baby.
If Hellboy and Grimace had a baby and it had a deformed nutsack on its chin. And that's a joke from the movie. The Star-Lord says he has a nutsack on his chin. But the whole time I'm hearing this, it really makes me go, why didn't they just get Ron Perlman?
Yeah. Nothing against Josh Brolin.
No, Josh Brolin's a badass,
yeah,
but Ron Perlman's an even bigger badass. Overall, I found myself kind of like I was watching a Friday the 13th movie, where I know Thanos is the bad guy, just like Jason's the bad guy.
Right.
But part of me's rooting him on.
Now, let's get to, so we've given spoilers and everything. What about the actual, criticisms? What are some of the things that you specifically liked or didn't like?
Okay, so the first criticism that comes to mind, well, we already covered the way that they just made Thor Ragnarok meaningless.
Right.
Which, again, if you heard our last topic, we talked about movies trying too hard to be funny.
Right.
And that was a criticism I had about that. So
and Thor was like our main point of topic in that one.
Yeah. This, I'm not too broken up over the fact that they invalidated Ragnarok, because I like it, but it's not great. We got it for the girls because they love it. They laugh their asses off.
I watch it with them. I enjoy it, but
I can get enjoyment out of it. But in the scope of Marvel films, it's not up there for me.
Right.
But I feel like from a storytelling standpoint, that's really bad to just invalidate the previous film in the opening 5 minutes.
Yeah.
I feel like the film was very unbalanced.
Yeah.
Because they had so many characters to go to, so many things to address, and I think it's like 2 and a half to 2 hours and 40 minutes.
Yeah.
So it's a long run time, but it's so disjointed and bouncing back and forth. It just feels like a collection of episodes. It kind of felt like we were marathoning a series.
Yeah.
Instead of just watching a movie. Because you've got, they're in Scotland, where Scarlet Witch and Vision are having a romantic getaway. And it feels realistic. Even though we have Vision, this unrealistic character, in this situation.
Right now he's kind of holographed himself to look normal.
Yeah, he's holographed to look like Paul Bettany.
Yeah.
And it looks like a normal Marvel film. Then that's where Cap and Black Widow and Falcon show up.
Right.
And all of those characters, even with their fantastic points, are based in realism. Mm-hmm. And then it skips over to space, where everything is CG'd.
Yeah.
And it's such an abrupt change, it's almost jarring. Mm-hmm. And I felt like the film was too CG at times. Especially in space, where I know they have to have CG in space.
Right.
But...
Well, it's not like they can put, the rings of Saturn actually in the shot.
Yeah, but...
Not that there's the rings of Saturn, just example.
But it's very clear from this that Spider-Man's suit and Iron Man's suit are entirely CGI.
Yeah.
Because when they're not wearing their masks, it just looked like somebody almost... at times, poorly photoshopped Robert Downey Jr.'s head on an Iron Man suit. It's just, it was so clearly fake that it took me out of it.
Well, I could see that a little bit in those scenes, in the space scenes with Robert Downey Jr. and Tom Holland. But where I really saw it was in Wakanda, especially at the very end there, when you had
Banner and the Hulkbuster armor.
Yeah, and throughout most of the time that he's in the Hulkbuster armor, you just see the Hulkbuster armor, and then it does the close up of his face with all the graphics around it,
like inside
the helmet, right? But then at the very end, after everybody's disintegrated, and the people who have survived are like gathering together, like, what the hell just happened? He takes the helmet off, and he and Brody are still.
Rhodey.
Why did I say Brody?
I don't know.
Maybe I'm mixing Bucky and Rhodey because whenever he comes up, like, he comes up right where Bucky just died.
Yeah.
I don't know. Or maybe it's the fact that I'm, having alcohol. That could be it too.
Blame it on the booze.
I'm a lightweight. Shut up.
So, yeah, Rhodey was another one that was...
Right. Yeah, it was... And I think, especially with Banner, it looks like the floating head syndrome.
Yeah.
And but I think that's because I noticed it more with them, because in the space scenes, they're wearing the CG suits, but they're also surrounded by CG, so it kind of blends more. Whereas with this, it's like all this reality, all this real life, setting, and then these CG
it's so
suits
out of
just
place.
kind of, yeah, exactly.
Now, did you notice with Scarlet Witch that she pulled a full Halle Berry here?
Yeah,
Because, and what I mean by this...
To describe a Halle Berry.
Yeah, to describe a Halle Berry, it's full accent, half an accent, screw the accent. And that's Halle Berry over the course of the first 3 X-Men films. The first film, she had a very terrible African accent. X2,
terrible.
She pulled it back a little bit, a little bit of her actual accent chiming in. And by X3, they just told her, look, Halle, you're a good actress, but screw the accent.
Right. It was so bad.
So here... Elizabeth Olsen had the same thing
but she did a good job with the accent.
She did a great job with the accent.
Well, I don't. It seems to us
it was believable.
Yeah,
it was very believable.
Unless
maybe stereotypical, but
unless maybe you're from the area that her character is supposed to be from.
If you're from a Slavic area and you're just like, that's some racist bullshit.
Right, that's a horrible accent. Why? It's like Dick Van Dyke doing the British accent in Mary Poppins.
Hello.
but they love him for it, though.
Yeah. Well, it's Dick Van Dyke. But anyway, with Avengers Age of Ultron, very thick accent. Mm-hmm. And then in Civil War, still had it, but it was pulled back a bit. And then,
it was like there were hints of accent, like she had started developing an American accent
because she'd been around for so long. The Avengers. But she still had it. It was still there.
Right.
And then in Infinity War, the very first scene, it's like she forgot it.
Yeah.
And then the next time you see her, it's like one of the Russo brothers, one of the directors, was like, Elizabeth, you're supposed to have an accent. Oh, that's right. Yes, I have an accent. It's like she throws it in just every now and then. Which
by the end of the movie, it was gone.
It's gone. The accent is gone. She's full on American at this point. But
she has such a pretty smile.
She is a great actress. I think she's a great addition.
Yeah.
I think she breaks the Olsen image.
Yeah.
Right out. You have to remind yourself she's the younger sister to the Olsen twins.
Yeah.
But I think that I've heard some criticisms about her character, that her driving force is her boyfriend, is Vision.
Yeah, we were talking about this one earlier.
And I get it. I don't think it's as bad as people are saying, because she definitely has her moments of kicking ass.
Right,
At
absolutely.
the end, where one of Thanos' children, the one female Thanos child, is going to kill her, and she says, you're going to die alone just like your boyfriend, and you hear, she's not alone, and there's Black Widow and the head of the Wakandan Guard, and it's like the 3 most badass women in this are kicking ass together.
But the thing is, though, you said she definitely has her badass moments, talking about Scarlet Witch. That was not a badass moment for her. At that point, she was about to lose. The badass moment for her during that fight was when those rolling things were heading towards the people.
She
was up with Vision because
Shuri.
Shuri. Because Shuri is trying to get the Mind Stone out of Vision's head while preserving Vision's life.
Yes.
Right? Trying to separate it from all the other synapses.
Because they've determined that what makes up Vision is more than just the Mind Stone.
Yeah.
It's
a bit of Stark, it's a bit of Banner, it's a bit
of Ultron, it's a bit of Jarvis.
Yeah.
So all of that has evolved. And they're like,
right.
yeah, we can remove the Mind Stone and he's still Vision.
Right.
And they're about to, when they realize we need some more help.
Well, because the point of removing the Mind Stone is because since the Mind Stone was used to give Scarlet Witch, Wanda, and her brother their powers, her powers have the closest resonance with the Mind Stone and can actually be the only thing that can destroy it. And so,
she was there to watch over and protect
Vision, and then destroy the Mind Stone once it was free of him.
Yeah.
But then they end up in a tight spot down in the actual battlefield. And she goes down, there's these big rolling saw blade things.
Yeah, saw blade wheels is the best way to describe it.
And they're gigantic, just coming down the battlefield towards all these people. And she goes down there and she just does a little bit of a, magic trick and just whoosh, and they all just explode. And the head of the Wakandan Guard is all like, why hasn't she been down here the whole time?
Because she was guarding Vision, and as soon as she was down on the playing field, that's when Thanos' children went, she's not there anymore. Go.
Yeah.
And it's shit, they were waiting for that.
It's that's why they were putting so much force on...
Because they wanted them to pull out the big guns.
Right, yeah.
So, there was a big criticism with the last Star Wars movie, with Last Jedi, and it was the whole mentality of... What they said in the movie was, let the past die.
Right.
And basically, the ultimate legacy of the Jedi is failure. Mm-hmm. That the Jedi have failed. Mm-hmm. They even say that in the movie. Luke says it.
Right.
And people kind of...
And then Yoda kind of backs him up.
Yeah, Yoda backs him up there. And a lot of fans were pissed off about that. Mm-hmm. How dare they say that the Jedi failed. I'm not hearing anybody really pissed off about this movie.
Yeah.
Because the Avengers failed.
Yeah.
And the failure of the Avengers... Now, let me backtrack. I'm sorry. I have heard some criticisms.
Okay.
But not bashing the film. It's they're treating it like it's going to be a character development moment.
Right.
Where there's two people really to blame for the failure of what happened.
Okay.
Scarlet Witch a little bit because she left her post to help, and in leaving her post, Shuri had to defend herself and wasn't able to finish the process.
Right, yeah.
But the big one is Peter Quill, Star-Lord.
Right.
People are saying that if you have to blame anybody for what happened here, it's Star-Lord.
Why?
Because there's the moment where they're about to get the gauntlet off of Thanos.
Oh,
and they're
yeah.
fighting him. And it's almost off. And that's when he finds out Gamora's dead by his hand.
Yeah.
Peter Quill loses it and starts attacking Thanos.
Well,
Mantis is on top of Thanos, making him complacent.
Yeah.
She gets knocked off, so Thanos comes back to full strength and puts the glove back on.
Well, even Stark is getting on Quill's case at that point, saying, stop it, we've almost got the gauntlet off, you need to back off.
Yeah.
And Quill at that point is just so pissed.
Yeah. And that's where I'm just maybe there's a different way of looking at it that I'm just not seeing. Mm-hmm. But, people were pissed off at the movie The Last Jedi.
Yeah.
Because of the Jedi failed, because of the image that they were projecting.
Right.
When here, the Avengers failed, they failed due to a beloved character screwing up royally.
Right.
But fans are okay with it so far.
I think that's because there's a difference between saying... Because the point of the Jedi is not to be in love with somebody, but to be protectors and lovers of
everyone together.
Of everyone
Yeah.
together. So, if they fail, if the Jedi fail, they have failed everyone.
Yeah.
Whereas this was just a simple matter. That's nothing is a simple
Well, that's
matter
the thing
when it
is
comes
because
to love.
Peter Quill failed, and ultimately half the universe is dead because of it.
He failed in a human way,
Yeah.
though. Here, he just, you go back to Guardians 2, and it was the whole thing of his ego, not his ego, but his father's ego.
His father, named ego.
Named ego, let's specify, saying to him, you kill me, all you are is human. And then Peter's like, what's wrong with that?
Yeah.
So he is doing exactly what a human would do.
Yeah. Even though there were two humans at the same time going, no, stop it.
They're not humans that were in love with Gamora and just found
Yeah.
out that she had been killed.
Yeah.
And everything. But that's a heartbreaking moment, though, because Mantis is trying to keep him calm and says that, he's in mourning.
Yeah. And again, it
Yeah.
goes to show more depth to Thanos, which
Yeah.
is why I was getting behind. We had more character development for Thanos than we did just about any character in this movie.
And that was something else I was going to bring up, was the fact that, I don't know if anyone has actually said this, but I think I've actually heard one or two people say it, that there was no real solid plot. It was just a lot of battle and stuff like that. And I'm like, that's because the plot has been building for the last 10 years.
Yeah. And
a lot of it just in post-credit sequences.
yes, there a lot of this, but that again though is a little bit of a failure on the movie when you're having to rely on other films and other parts of other films to tell your story.
Really quick, apparently when you burp amaretto and Coke, it tastes somewhat like banana.
So I think it's a failure on the movie that you're asking. It's like the people that complained about like the Harry Potter movies. Well, if you had just read the books,
Right.
oh no. A movie's responsibility is to tell me a complete story.
Right.
If I am now tasked with having to bring in outside sources to complete this story,
Yeah.
no, that's a failure on the movie's part.
I agree.
Now here, it's an overall branching story.
Which everybody knows.
Yeah, which everybody should know by this point, having seen 10 years of other films.
Right, and also seeing how all of the other movies have somehow interlocked. Like, think of the second Thor movie. I'm sorry, I bring up Thor a lot. The second Thor movie, whenever he's breaking Loki out of the prison, and then Loki's all like, well, because they can't just see, the other guards can't just see Loki walking about.
He turns into various people, and then one of them is Captain
he's like,
America.
or how about one of your new friends? And he turns into Captain America.
But here's the thing, though, is even though they all tie into each other, they all tell their own stories.
They do, yeah.
This one told a little bit of a story, but yeah, I definitely, I hadn't heard this until now, but I do get it, and I do see where people would argue it was just a lot of battles.
Yeah.
This movie was a battle CGI fest.
Yeah, definitely it was.
And I think that it did well, but, and this is something I alluded to earlier, there's an ultimate failure, at least to me, in a storytelling perspective, that they keep saying half the world, half the universe, half of whatever.
Population.
The population is, because at one time they say the world, then they say it's the universe, but basically half the people are gone.
Well, the people who can travel throughout the universe is basically their whole world.
Yeah.
So
We see this directly impact only the people that were fighting. So we see fighters vanishing from the fields.
well, like on Titan, of all the people who were fighting Thanos on Titan, by the end of it, the only ones who are still alive on there are Nebula and Stark.
Yeah. And on Wakanda, you've got Captain America, who everybody was convinced
I was
gonna
so
die.
sure he was gonna die
Because Captain America dies in the comics.
and then Bucky takes over.
And Bucky takes over as Captain America. Even Chris Evans has said that he wants to start bowing out and doing more behind the scenes work.
And just retire from acting.
Retire from acting. So yeah, we expected
right.
Cap lives, Black Widow lives. But we're seeing all these characters die, but we don't see any secondary background characters.
Right.
And I feel like that was a great loss for the story to not see. Does Pepper live?
Well, that's what I was about to say, is that at the end of the movie, I'm sitting there going, is Pepper alive? Is Aunt May alive?
Yeah.
You know, who? Wong. Did Wong survive?
All these where the hell, again, I'll say it again, we said it earlier. Where was Valkyrie?
Yeah.
Where were these characters that were on the freaking ship at the end of Ragnarok?
Well, even Thor at one point says they killed half of the people on the ship. Well, when the Guardians showed up, the ship was completely obliterated, and there were just bodies floating in space.
Thor just plastered on their windshield. That's how they got him in the ship.
So, where's the other half of Asgard?
Yeah. So there was no real weight or impact outside of the people that were in the fight.
Right. Mm-hmm.
Like, we even seen Ned.
I was about to say, where's Ned?
Ned was... Ned, I need a distraction. And the look on his face was like, I get to do something. We're all gonna die!
See, now, I took something different from that. I took that whenever Peter said, I need a distraction, at that point because he tapped Ned on the shoulder.
No, he slapped him in the face.
He slapped him in the face, yeah. You're probably going to have I think my finger just grazed the microphone.
Fine.
But, so he slaps him, and it was the whole thing of, Peter was looking out the window, and he reaches forward, and first he taps him on the shoulder, and he starts moving up and starts hitting his face. And then Ned looks over, and Peter goes, hey, I need a distraction. And then because Ned's looking over, I caught that he saw the ship, and then freaks out.
Okay.
But then Ned freaks out and just starts yelling, we're all gonna die!
See, he almost had a smile on his face, so I thought he was just playing into it.
I didn't see it. I didn't see the smile. I just saw him freaking out.
But yeah, Aunt May. Mm-hmm. Would have liked to have just seen just a little something.
Yeah.
Especially after the end of Homecoming. I'm going to be so pissed if the way that they resolve what happens here in Infinity Wars overwrites that.
I don't think it will. I hope it
want
won't.
To see Aunt May knowing.
Yeah. Well, she's never known in anything else, has she? Did
she has. She finds out, but in varying times.
Movie-wise, she didn't know in the Andrew Garfield or the Tobey Maguire.
No, never knew. But I feel like that was just... That would have broadened the effect.
Yeah.
And really had shown how this is impacting the world.
Right. Well, so you were talking about knowing whether or not... I thought you were still talking about Aunt May knowing that he's Spider-Man.
No. But I also think that they relied a little too much on the fans being aware of things and not enough on realizing that a lot of the fan base in this is people that this is their only exposure to the comic book world.
To the comic book world, yeah, but I feel like they've covered enough in all the other movies, because the whole point of this movie was being made with the knowledge that other people will have been seeing. We put this information in the previous movies for a reason.
But the Captain Marvel thing. Mm-hmm. Very few people in the audience recognize the Captain Marvel logo.
When your mom got home today from watching the movie, she
didn't even remember the logo. She thought that it ended on calling.
Yeah, on sending to or whatever. Yeah. And then she's like, but it didn't say who it was sending to. And we're sitting there going, yes it did. No, it didn't. And then you mentioned the logo to her, and she's like, well, how am I supposed to know that?
Exactly, yeah. My mom she's never opened a comic book.
No!
So, they really could have succeeded with just something as simple as calling Captain Marvel.
Yeah.
Actually having the words Captain Marvel on there, because audiences know there's a movie coming out called Captain Marvel.
Right.
People who follow movies but don't know shit about comic books know that Brie Larson is... going to be Captain Marvel. So I just felt like it was a little too much fan service and not enough straightforward storytelling.
Well, just, have the logo on there, but have it go sending to, and then say, then have the logo, and then have Captain Marvel pop up on the logo or something like that. So you get that fan service, but then you have that clarification for the people who don't follow the comics. Because I know some of what goes on in some of the comics. There are just so many that it is overwhelming and daunting to even try and pick one up and keep up with all the different ins and outs. So a lot of the stuff that I find out through the internet or through talking to people who have spent years reading the comics and keeping up on the storylines.
Well, it's like in again, let's go back for a second to Thor Ragnarok. There's that part where Thor comes back to Asgard, and Loki's masquerading as Odin.
Right.
And they get to that part where Matt Damon is playing Loki and I'm sorry I turned you into a frog. And I'm sure audiences who don't know anything about comic books were like, he turned him into a frog. And people that know comic books go, Thor was a frog in the comic books. He freaking was a frog.
Was he?
That was right out of the comics. So that's a great bit of fan service because whether you like it or whether you like comic books or not, you're going to get humor out of it. You're going to get something out of the reference. The references here, nothing.
Yeah.
And there are some fans who are actually a little irritated with some of the references because they called his axe, Thor's new axe, that Peter Dinklage Hagrid makes for him.
You need to clarify.
I will clarify that here in just a minute. But what Peter Dinklage makes for him, he calls like Storm Chaser or Storm Kill, something like that.
Yeah.
That is not the name of this weapon. That's the name of another weapon in the Thor universe.
Yeah.
And fans are kind of a little upset that they just appropriated this name.
Oh, really?
For this.
I just call it Thor's axe.
Yeah, Thor's
or
axe.
hammer or whatever.
It's a axe hammer.
Axe hammer, like one half is a hammer.
It's a pickaxe. So
no, there's no pick.
I know. So Peter Dinklage is in this movie. Not a lot of people knew that going in.
Is it a hax or an hammer?
So Peter Dinklage is in this movie, and the best joke in the movie is Peter Dinklage is the tallest character in the whole movie.
Like quite a bit taller.
Quite a bit taller. He's an elf or a dwarf. He's a dwarf, but in this, dwarves are like 20 feet tall.
Right.
And he freaking looks like Hagrid from Harry Potter. The beard, the hair. Like, oh my god. Like, I seriously was just like, I'm like, Peter Dinklage is a badass, but this role's not doing it. Like, there were times where it was great.
Oh, I loved his performance. Like, there were moments when he got this look on his face like, what? You're what?
Well, like, he was very straightforward, and I love the serious moments where, I can't remember the character's name, but he's the one that made Mjolnir.
Right.
And they're at the place where Mjolnir was made. And
right,
it's
at that
shut
dwarf
down,
star. Yeah.
At the dwarfs, or the dying star. Mm-hmm. And it's been shut down because Thanos came in, and he's also the guy that made Thanos' Infinity Gauntlet.
Right.
And
by force.
By force. And he had his hands cut off, so his hands are now just these closed fists of
Were they
steel.
cut off, or were they just...
He took his hands off.
Did he?
Yeah,
okay,
so
I didn't
they were
catch
replaced
that.
with... So, Thor's having to take an active role in helping to create his new axe.
Right.
But Peter Dinklage has these moments where he says, I thought if I helped him, he would spare everybody, and he killed everybody anyway. It's like, great acting! Peter Dinklage, freaking phenomenal actor.
Right.
And then they try to do humor, and it just kind of fell... No, that is exactly what happens when you die. Like, it's just like his delivery, just the jokes fell flat for me. But the axe is pretty badass, and I like the fact that the handle is Groot.
Yeah.
they're like, where's the handle? Where's the handle? And Groot, who's just been passive this whole movie, just gets up and goes, oh, and reaches out.
He wasn't entirely passive.
For most of he's playing a video game.
Well, yeah, but I mean, at this moment, he didn't just go.
Yeah.
He didn't just go, oh, okay.
No, he realized it was.
It was serious because the mechanism that's whenever they get the Dwarf Star started back up, the mechanism that's supposed to keep that's supposed to stay open so that the power from the Dwarf Star can actually heat the metal is broken and it won't stay open. So Thor has to hold it open and completely take on the heat from the Dwarf Star.
He's basically burned to almost death.
Well, he says, this is with the joke you were talking about. The Peter Dinklage's character says it's a suicide mission, and then Thor makes some sort of joke of, yeah, I know it's a suicide mission. It's not like I'm gonna die or something like that. And then Peter Dinklage is like, that's exactly what a suicide mission is. What? But that's the look that you and I have different opinions of that. You're like, oh, that fell flat. I'm like, but I love the look on his face because it was like that perfect type of
stupid
type of look.
But because he's burned, they need to get him to hammer
to help revive him.
Yeah, to channel that energy. Right.
And at that point, Groot has been playing the video game, and then he sees what Thor is doing, and he sees how hectically Peter Dinklage is trying to get all this stuff done, and he realizes this is serious. And when the axe is completed, what they really need the handle for is to connect the two pieces, because there's a piece that's more like an axe and a piece that's more like a hammer. That the flat side and then the sharp side. And so Groot grows his arm out, wraps it around the two pieces, pulling them together, and then just breaks his arm off. And so his arm is now the handle for this new weapon.
So to wrap this up, we I
was about to say, how long have we been going for?
We've talked about the things that we didn't like. We've talked about the general idea of the film. The resolution is coming. Again, that's why I couldn't take any of the deaths seriously, because it was very clear none of this is going to stick. Maybe some of the deaths, like I think maybe Loki and Heimdall may stay dead, but like anybody that vanished and Gamora.
Yeah. You think Gamora?
Yeah, because they're going to have another Guardians film.
Well, they've got to also do the happy ending for Gamora and Quill.
Yeah, I think they're going to find a way to time travel is now involved,
right? Not
only because of the Time Stone, but
because of the
Captain Marvel,
right?
So, what were if you had to pick a favorite character or favorite couple characters?
Not
just overall, but just from this movie.
Oh my goodness, that's hard.
Okay, while you're thinking on that, I'll throw this out. Mine?
I love how you say while you're thinking on that, but then you distract me with something else.
Well, you don't have to listen to me. I'm talking to a microphone for the 3 people that are going to listen online.
3? That many?
Rocket.
Yeah.
I've always, even though Guardians
Thor kept calling him a cute bunny.
Even though the Guardians films aren't my favorites, I love the character of Rocket in the Guardians films. And in this, he's the best that I've seen as a character so far, as the character of Rocket.
I love how even with different writers and different directors, they've managed to keep a continuity with Rocket.
Yes.
And not just because Bradley Cooper is continuously playing the character, so he has a way of performing it, but his love for stealing people's add-ons.
And that's what one of my favorite moments in the movie is when they end up after getting, Rocket and Groot went with Thor
to get the hammer.
to get the new axe hammer.
Oh yeah.
So they use the Bifrost now because the hammer controls the Bifrost.
Right.
They get to Wakanda to help with the fight, and we have a moment where Rocket is fighting next to Bucky. And Bucky, all the credit in the world for not looking down and going, what the is that? But Rocket just looks up and goes, hey, how much for the gun? It's not for sale. How much for the arm?
And then at that point, Bucky just kind of looks at him
Just
and
chuckles
then
and walks away.
off. I don't even think he chuckles.
Yeah, he's just, I'll get that arm. And that is very well used humor.
Well, then even Thor gets another eye, and you find out that... I'm going to complain about the eye in a second, but tell the good part. Right. Well, Rocket gives this eye to Thor.
Once Rocket and Thor have a moment where he realizes Thor is almost damaged.
Yeah.
And needs to help him. He's like, oh, by the way, you might want this.
Yeah. And so he gives, and I like the fact that they didn't like just go, hey, this eye happens to look exactly like Chris Hemsworth's, other eye, his actual eye. They haven't put a contact in to show you that it is a different eye. Yeah. But so Rocket hands him this eye. He's like, oh, hey, you might need this. And then Thor is like, where did you get a mechanical eye? And Rocket says, oh, this guy, lost.
When he died.
He lost. He lost to Rocket in a poker game.
That's right.
And then he goes, and he gave you his mechanical eye. He's like, no, he gave me so much money.
No, he lost $100.
Yeah.
I took the eye.
He's like, I snuck into his room and stole the eye from him later.
And then Thor just takes off the eye patch and goes to put it in. And Rocket goes, oh, yeah, I would have washed that first.
To smuggle it out, I had to...
smuggle it off, I had to shove it up my... And then just...
Right, and then they get cut off, yeah.
So, the humor was used well at times. I think, with the Guardians and Thor there, when it's all of them together,
right,
they got a little goofy. Because their films, especially with Ragnarok and the Guardians movies, are goofy.
Yeah.
And you had this whole back and forth between Chris Pratt and Chris Hemsworth, where Star-Lord is trying to mimic Thor.
Because everyone's like all impressed with Thor, like Gamora.
Like even Drax is like, you're a guy.
He's like a pirate and an angel had a baby.
Yeah. A pirate and an angel had a baby. This is a man. It's just like I was expecting him to mount him,
right? And then Quill's like, "I'm a man." He's like, "You're not a man. You're a grown boy. Yeah, this is a man.
You're a dude.
You're a dude. This is a man." And then Gamora comes over and she like starts caressing his arm and everything and talking about how his muscles are. And Quill's like, stop caressing his muscles!
See, I'm not complaining about that part, because let's be honest, if I was next to Chris Hemsworth, I'd probably be stroking something too. But...
I thought you only felt that way about Tom Hiddleston.
They're brothers. But
has he got a brother?
But just overall, I felt the film was successful, but really... just glaring misses where it could have just been amazing and really told a more complete, like, concrete story,
right,
while still having it open for more.
The biggest criticism that I had was how jarring it was going from Earth to space, and not necessarily for the same reason that you had, that it was kind of, seemed like two different movies, but because they would, every now and then they would spend so much time on one set of characters, like on Earth, that I would, for a bit, forget that there was another story going on space. And so when they would cut to it, I was like, oh yeah, there's more going on here. And it wasn't always equal. Like sometimes it was a short span of time, other times it was a long span of time, and so I didn't, it just seemed kind of, like you said, unbalanced. If they had some parts shorter and some parts longer to make it more equalized, that would have been
so I know we kind of went off on a tangent. Have you had a chance on several tangents, but have you had a chance to think of like your standout character or characters for the movie?
I actually forgot that you asked me that question. Someone, I don't think he was a standout character. It was, I wish that they had kind of given him more, was Cap.
Yeah. Cap really had
He had very, very little to do in this. There was a moment though, whenever he's side by side battling with Thor, with Thor at his side, and he's like, "Oh, you got a haircut," and then Thor looks at him and goes, "I see you decided to grow a beard out like mine," and then he just kind of like, yeah, but there was. Then he's like, "Who are these guys that you're with?" And then Thor just calls Groot, "Oh, and that's Tree," and then Groot goes, "I am Groot," and then he goes, "I am Steve Rogers." Like, very poignantly goes, "I am."
Okay, so speaking of Cap, at one point we talked about indicators of reshoots.
Yes.
And we named Samurai Cop's wig as a
so
blatant indicator of reshoots.
Yeah.
If you haven't seen Samurai Cop, he has long hair. They had to do reshoots. He cut his hair, and they gave him a shitty wig.
Yeah.
Then we went to Attack of the Clones, Ewan McGregor's beard.
Yeah.
He shaved afterwards, and they gave him a fake beard, which it is blatant. It's just it almost looks like a different person during certain scenes where it's like awkward and it sticks out and it just looks so weird.
I hiccuped.
That's fine. And then we added Henry Cavill's lip from Justice League as just blatant indicators of them having to go back and do reshoots.
Let's count how many times you use the word blatant.
I am throwing in Captain America's beard. Because, I'm sorry, there is no room for Marvel to ever shit on Henry Cavill's CG'd out mustache with what they did with Cap's beard in this. Because Cap had this full beard and full to the point that his mustache covered his lip. Like, he had I was expecting him to, pull out a flannel shirt and be the damn brawny man. I mean, he had a full beard, and then he was talking in some scenes where the mustache over his lip was really thin, and you could see his lips perfectly and see skin around his lips, and I'm like, did he just trim in between scenes? And then it would come back and he'd have the full beard again, and I'm like, oh no. He shaved and they gave him a crappy Obi-Wan beard. And it just, I noted, I'm a stickler for this kind of stuff, so I noticed it, and it just really threw me at times where it's just like, oh god, no, Chris Evans, no. And there was a few scenes where, Tony Stark's hair, oh no, not Tony Stark, Doctor Strange's hair was laying kind of flat after a battle, and he would be talking to people, and the next scene it's sticking straight up like another hairdresser did it.
See, I don't notice all of those things until the second time I watch a movie. Because the first time this was something that I was taught in film school. The first time you watch a movie, watch it just to watch the movie. Get the feel of the movie, get whatever plot is there, to know just the movie. And the second time you watch the movie, that's when you start, because that was how, because when we did tests and stuff, our tests were what was here, noticing the little, the little things,
the little inconsistencies,
not necessarily the inconsistencies, but what time was on the clock in the background, just all the little things there. And so, that was something that we would do. We would watch the movie the first time in class, and then our homework was to watch the movie a second time on our own and notice all the things. And so, that's what I do. The first time I watch a movie, I watch it just for the sake of watching the movie. And it's the second time where I start noticing those things.
Now, to clarify, I'm not looking for these things. I'm watching it. I'm into the scene.
That's because you're OCD and the stuff stands out with you.
Yeah, it very much stands out and just kind of slaps me in the face. But to wrap this up, I do want to get your score on the movie.
Right.
So,
well, really quick, I'm going to say, I don't know about standout performance.
Okay.
But the standout, I think, relationship for me was Peter Parker and Tony Stark.
Yes.
Now, that was the one that really struck me, because, Peter shows up, and then Stark is like, what are you doing here?
Field trip.
He's like, oh, I saw this and everything. And then next thing you know, and then Peter, he ends up attached to the ship trying to...
As it's going off in the space.
Right. Trying to help save Doctor Strange. And then Stark calls on another suit. And it's...
You think it's for him... Or that's the impression, is that he's calling for another Iron Man suit.
That's the initial impression.
Yeah.
But whenever you start seeing, Peter's getting up too high, he's taking off his mask because he can't breathe. You're like, oh, okay, it's the Spider-Man suit that you see at the end of Homecoming.
Yeah, the Iron Spider.
Yeah. And then he gets the suit on. He's like, oh, hey, I can breathe. And then Stark activates his parachute and gets him off and tries to get him off the ship.
Yeah.
But Peter attaches on and stays with him. And this is something that you see in Homecoming, is that Stark has this incredible sense of responsibility for Peter. And for him to have snuck on board. And, oh, gosh, that moment when he's like... where Peter says to him, well, you're the one who gave me the suit, so, it's kind of your fault. And that look, that Tony gives him is fantastic. He's like, really? It's my fault?
And the look when he reluctantly makes him an Avenger.
Yeah.
He does, like, the sword on both. He goes,
right.
All right, now you're an Avenger.
Right.
And it's just like, I don't want to do that. Then Peter's like, okay.
And he has this grin on his face like, I'm an Avenger. But you see that he worries about Peter.
Yeah.
And so you see that there's always this protectiveness of him. And you kind of get the impression that even when Peter goes off, like he saves Mantis at one point. And you almost get the impression that whatever Stark is doing, he's always kind of like at least partially watching what Peter's doing.
Yeah.
And then that moment when everybody's turning to ash, and then Peter just goes, Mr. Stark, I don't feel so good. Yeah. And then you see like Stark's face kind of goes ashen, not because it's turning to ash, but just like, he knows that it's coming. And then Peter kind of stumbles in to Tony and just hugs on to him and just is scared and crying. And then it's just the whole relationship between those two is the whole reason why I love watching
it is the highlight
scenes.
of their side of the story.
Yeah.
Of like the Guardians, because they team up with the Guardians at one point.
Well, the other Guardians aside from
Rocket
and Groot.
So. Yeah. So ultimately, final thoughts on the movie and on a scale of 1 to 10.
Yeah, I never give anything a 10 because there's always going to be, nothing is ever perfect. There's no such thing as true perfection.
The Godfather.
You're biased.
Okay, so.
So I'm gonna go 8.5. Okay, just because of the things like the jarring nature and of the unbalancedness that we were talking about, and the fact that we only see the outcome for the people directly in battle. You don't see, what happened to Aunt May, what happened to Pepper.
Yeah.
Pepper? Is Pepper,
yeah,
right?
Pepper Potts.
Yeah.
We don't see Happy.
Yeah, we don't see Happy at all. We don't even see like a hint of Happy. Not a discussion of Happy, nothing like that. Yeah, and then it also makes me wonder, what about Clint and Ant-Man? Who survived of their family? Stuff like that, because they went into hiding to protect their families. And so those things like that are the reason why I'm going to go 8.5.
Okay.
But it was still emotional. It was still fun, and I would still love to see it again.
I can agree with I'm looking forward to seeing it again. I'm looking forward to getting it on Blu-ray so we can watch it at our leisure and kind of break it down and watch certain points over and over again.
Right. Watch it in a controlled atmosphere so that when our oldest freaks out at the death of like Groot and Quill and stuff like that, then
we can stop it for the night
and she can come over and cry in our arms for a minute.
I'm going to go a little bit lower than you though.
Okay.
Overall, I'm going to give it an 8.
Okay.
I've seen a lot of lists come out calling this the best Marvel film.
Right.
And that sets off my bullshit detector. Just because I think it's a little too early to give it that much praise. I think it needs to sink in a little bit. And then
I agree with you.
Because a lot of people are riding the post-movie high.
Yeah.
for me, I've just got to kind of, go along with what you said, because we don't see how this impacted the world at large. We don't see how it impacted the Marvel universe at large. It was just the fighters, not the side characters that bring so much to the table. We see Wong in the opening, and then we don't know how it impacts him.
Right.
There was just a lot of things that I felt like they stumbled on, and a lot of things that I felt like they left hanging, which would have made for a much more robust story instead of just action, 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 a little bit of story, action, 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 bounced around too much, a little too much CGI, a little too much by way of the action, especially with Iron Man, because now his suit is all nanotech.
Yeah.
And I really liked Iron Man when it was believable, like in the real world, quote unquote.
Well, apparently also he had a thing put back on.
Well, that was just on his clothes.
Was
it was like something he could take off and put on any clothes.
Well, he said something about it doing something for his heart.
Yeah, it was like to protect, and like, he's got an arc reactor like on his clothes now, but that's where all the nanotech is. And he started off as this genius billionaire who put together all these pieces, and you could see how it pieced together. It looked science fiction, granted, but now it's nanotech, where it's all coming up and covering, and he's also like, his arms are turning into blades, and his feet are turning into one big rocket booster, and it went a little too far for me.
Yeah.
So just because of that, some of that stuff just kind of took me out of it. I don't think it's the best Marvel film by far, but I would definitely say it's a top 10.
Yeah.
I think this was very well done. I don't even know if I would call it the best Avenger, of the three Avengers movies. I don't even know if I'd call it the best. But on more viewings, I might change my mind on that. But as of right now, it's an 8. Respectable, very well done, and looking forward to seeing it again. All right, so any last thoughts before we click the button and stop talking about Infinity War?
I think we pretty much covered everything.
Okay. And if anybody is listening to this that heard me laughing, I'm so sorry if I pissed you off, but I was just enjoying myself. And
enjoying watching me suffer.
I was enjoying hearing people just kind of pulling an Aunt May with, "What the
Let's face it, this is not the worst thing you've caught me doing.